I'm Melissa Pineda, and today I will be discussing the book The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. But this book is so good, and it's written at the end of the 19th century. I love books that are as amazing and interesting now as they were when they were first written. This book is definitely one of those books. So H.G. Wells also wrote The Time Machine. I did a review on this book as well. So that was published in 1895. And then the year later, he published this one, The Island of Dr. Moreau. It's a science fiction book, just like The Time Machine. And this book was especially interesting because it sort of touched on different debates that were happening in England at that time. So for instance, a lot of debates were happening around Darwin's theories of evolution and the fear that existed in England at this time of basically human degeneration. The opposite of evolution in terms of Darwin's theories. And so this was highly controversial and highly debated at this time. Another issue that's touched on in this book that was very controversial was animal vivisection. Now, I didn't realize exactly what vivisection meant. I knew it was surgery, but I did not realize that it was surgery on live animals. Like, I thought maybe under anesthesia, doctors were operating on live animals to advance science for scientific study. And this was, very, very controversial at the time. So why would you want to listen to my review on this book? Well, it's a classic for one. And secondly, just an incredible book. It's just crazy you're reading it, and just like The Time Machine, I was like on the edge of my seat reading this book. What is gonna happen next? Like, it is just such a crazy, incredibly interesting story. But the thing with H.G. Wells, I find, is with his books, you're always a little scared when you're reading the books because they're a little too realistic. Like, okay, this could happen, couldn't it? Or could it happen? Or there's a man, an Englishman, Mr. Prendick, and he was traveling on a boat and his boat was shipwrecked and he was picked up by another boat. So there was something a little weird happening on this boat where the people that were on the boat didn't quite seem right. Mr. Prendick didn't know if it was just because he was really weak and dehydrated and almost like half dead really from being shipwrecked. So is he hallucinating? What's happening here? Is he seeing things? Anyway, he's brought to the island, and Dr. Moreau and his associate Montgomery didn't want Prendick to come to the island, but there was no other choice. The captain that was bringing the cargo to the island didn't want Prendick on it, and he wanted everything off that boat. He wanted everything that was on the boat off the boat. He was like, something, also he noticed it too, something weird is happening here. I don't want your live animals in cages. I don't want your weird workers on this boat. Everyone needs to get off. And so the captain basically kicked everyone off, and Prendick didn't have any choice and he had to stay on this island. And what was happening on this island? Well, there was vivisection happening. So live animals being operated on by this Dr. Moreau, who had been kicked out of England 10 years prior because of the same thing, because of experimenting on animals and completely inhumanely. And what he was doing on this island was worse than what he was doing back in England. So he had just kind of started his research in England, and what he was doing on this island is experimenting on animals, but to create humans, to create life, human life, but with the bodies of animals. So they're essentially just these mangled creations where you had, like a half bear, half bull, with cognition, like with some intelligence. And he experimented in his laboratory on the island, and he called it the House of Pain. It was really, really twisted, and it's interesting because at the beginning, when Prendick hears this puma screaming in agony, he was almost like annoyed by the sound. It was like, okay, I'm just gonna walk in the opposite direction of the sound, and I just don't want to hear the sound. So it's quite interesting because the impression I got was that this was the way that a lot of people at this time in the late 19th century in England kind of looked at this debate on animal cruelty. You know, some people, of course, were very opposed to it, while others probably didn't care. And it didn't seem like Prendick cared. It seemed more like he was annoyed by it. But as he found out exactly what was happening, then he became quite opposed to it. Like, at this one point in the story, he says something like, if Dr. Moreau had some sort of a goal in mind, like something, are you advancing science in terms of trying to, I don't know, cure cancer? But there was nothing given, no goal given, apart from this doctor just wanting to play God and wanting to create life and wanting to create human life from animals to see if he could make them intelligent. And when he made these animals, when he created these creatures that were half this, half that, with some sort of human intelligence, if he wasn't happy with what he created, he just discarded them. But he didn't kill them. He was like, hey, get out of here, go live on the island, and I don't want anything to do with you. You disgust me. It was very, very interesting. And so there's nothing likable about Dr. Moreau at all. Prendick, yeah, he wants to leave, but he can't. So he sort of befriends these animals that have been rejected by Dr. Moreau, because he continues to experiment to try to find the right combination to create what he's aspiring to create. And Prendick is just sick about it, and Montgomery is Moreau's sidekick. And anyway, so you end up really feeling horrible, obviously, for these discarded creatures. So in this book, these animals that were experimented on and discarded were called the beast folk. And they had this creed that they lived by that Moreau taught them, sort of to keep them down, to make sure that they wouldn't revolt. And they had certain laws they had to live by. So these beast folk had a law that they had to live by, that Dr. Moreau enforced with a whip and with the threat of returning them to the House of Pain, which is where he experimented on them. It was really twisted. And so these beast folk would chant this law, and they would have certain things they'd have to follow, these prohibitions, these rules. And so they would say things like, not to go on all fours, that is the law, are we not men? So they weren't supposed to go on all fours. Not to eat fish or flesh, this is the law, are we not men? Not to chase other men, this is the law, are we not men? And so Prendick starts looking at these beast folk with pity, because he sees that they don't fit in any world. They don't fit in the beast world, where they can just be the creatures they were before, and they don't fit in the human world because they don't quite understand it either, obviously. They don't understand that, okay, their animal instincts are telling them to eat other animals or to crawl on all fours, or they're being told under threat of violence not to do these things. And so they're completely confused, and they don't fit anywhere, and Prendick really feels horrible for them. And anyway, eventually what ends up happening, it's really no surprise to the reader, but the animals revolt. Some animals never wanted to fall in line, while others did. They revolted, Dr. Moreau dies, so does Montgomery, and so Prendick is left on this island with these beast folk. And what he starts observing is that they start regressing, they start returning to their animal selves. And so these animals revert to animalistic behavior. And he sees this progression after Moreau and Montgomery die. He's on this island for about 10 months until a boat ends up coming ashore. And so he's able to escape the island and eventually get picked up by a bigger boat, go back to England. And so he is completely traumatized by this experience, and he tries to tell people about what he experienced on this island. No one believes him. So he just starts feigning amnesia. And he realizes that he then can't quite fit into society in England anymore, because he keeps seeing beasts in all the humans around him, and he has this fear of them reverting to animalistic behavior. And so he ends up just living on his own in the countryside, and this is how the book ends. And it just really leaves you thinking about all these themes, all these topics, you know, about morality, about playing God, about how there's evil in all humans, how we're just all animals as well. And then you start also really thinking about like, well, who was really the beast here, right? Who's the real animal? You know, Dr. Moreau or the animals. So it was just such an interesting, very fascinating read. So definitely worthwhile for you to pick yourself up a copy. I've posted the link in the description. And if there's anything today that you found interesting or that you've liked, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for listening. Until next time.